The movie is centered around a baker named Matt who resides in a small town with his father, Jean Claire, who is also a baker. Matt is passionate about baking, but he is also struggling to keep his father's bakery afloat. It also centered around his relationship with his best friend, Annie. Matt and Annie are childhood best friends who try to find their passions in life. Matt's passion is baking bread, and he thinks that his baking is elevated when he's in love. His passion soon helps the island attract new tourists. However, this short-lived celebration comes to a halt when Matt ends up heartbroken. Annie pushes Matt to find his passion within himself while realizing that she is in love with him. Matt and Annie are lifelong friends who have a regular movie night and they seem like a perfect fit. But for some reason, neither has taken their relationship beyond a platonic friendship. If anything, they really do seem more like just old friends, or even siblings. He starts his day by baking bread in the morning and doing deliveries. Annie is in her once family-owned restaurant. She talks to her best friend, Mary, who is heavily pregnant and wants coffee. Annie tells her that the coffee is not good for the baby and she should hold off till the delivery. Matt joins them and asks Annie if they would do their normal movie night. Annie mentions that she is still upset with him for breaking up with Sarah. Annie has to find a replacement for the resting because she was depressed. Matt, who is not a relationship expert, explains that they weren't right for each other. Annie tells him that he doesn't think his idea of perfection would go far. Matt also talks about how Sarah didn't like the idea of him seeing a movie regularly with Annie. He humorously blames her for it. He bribes her with more pastry to let her come. When Matt leaves, Mary speaks about the fact that Matt and Annie may be in love with each other but may not know it. Walter, the mayor, is trying to get publicity for the town and believes that the tourists can help him out. Mrs. D, the owner of a prestigious dance school, arrives with her trainer, Philip, and other dancers. One of them is a young woman, Nicole, whom Matt finds attractive. Anne and Matt see a movie and she cries at the romantic ending while he thinks that the movie ends up the same way. She tells him that his path is to not avoid relationships. He promises that he has her so he doesn't have to do anything about it. She doesn't know whether to be flattered or insulted by the fact that he doesn't want a relationship. While leaving, he comes across one of her paintings and she says that it's not turning the way she wants. He tries to tell her that she is doing a superb job, but she doesn't believe him and believes that as a friend, he would always say good things. They bid each other good night. Matt is back at his place baking while Annie worries about doing her bookkeeping. Matt's father complains about how Matt needs to put his hand into his art of baking. He mentions that his late wife also inspired him and he needs to find his inspiration. Matt delivers the pastries to Mrs. D's house and comes across Nicole and is flattered. He mistakenly lets the pastry down to the floor. Walter is still searching for opportunities to be better for his town. He thinks about the publicity that they could have. He says that he would not stop anything until he gets to be popular. He says he needs a clearer head to think about all he is doing. Annie and Mary join them at the bar. Annie notices that Matt may really like Nicole. Nicole comes to the bar to ask for a Diet Coke and he sees an opportunity to talk to her. He tries to impress her by talking about ballet. He mentions that he loves the Nutcracker even though he was scared of the mouse. She teases him and everyone mocks him for how he handled the situation. Walter makes more efforts to let the town be known, but he is shut down. He sees Mrs. D and tries to talk more about the publicity. She believes that the ballet class would help him and promises to make a few calls on his behalf. Her little dog runs away from her and approaches Matt's father. The man feeds him some snacks. Mrs. D finds him and asks him if he didn't feed him. She tries to call her dog, but he doesn't answer until Gina Claire tells the dog to go back to the owner. This sparks a connection between them. Annie takes the order menu of the dancers. Philip, the owner, orders a large meal and she jokes about being able to pay for her electricity bill. He is impressed to find out that she owns the entire restaurant chain. Annie notices that he may like her after he flirts with her. Matt still tries to get their attention to Nicole. He jokes about food to her. He decides to talk about the food, but she is very evasive and doesn't say much. He leaves to tell Anne that he flipped and didn't get Nicole to go out with him. He laughs that he thinks she is enjoying it. Annie is painting over the dock and Matt arrives to talk to her. She asks him for his opinion concerning her painting. He refuses to come closer because he is scared of falling over the dock. She laughs at him because he cannot swim. Annie wants to know why he wants to spend his life surrounded by things he is afraid of. He asks for her opinion about the dancer. Annie is surprised that he likes her. He says that the interest comes with the fact that she is from a different place and is a dancer. He wants Annie to be his coach because she is smart and sophisticated. She agrees even if she hasn't dated anyone since 2 summers ago. She advises him to start with a deep conversation and he believes that he should start light so as not to scare her. She suggests that he could bake for her. He realizes what he needs to do and appreciates her. Nicole is walking around and stops by the bakery. He teases her from the window and comes out to see her. She wants to leave, but he tells her that he wasn't honest with her at first. He mentions that he saw her dance the other day in Mrs. D's house and says it was beautiful. He struggles with the right words to say. She lets him know that he is doing well even though he feels he isn't. He tries to bribe her with the bread and she says she can't take it because of her restricted diet. He decides to bake a classic panorama for her by 5 a.m. tomorrow. She is skeptical about it and about forming a bond with him. Right after they exchange names, she leaves. After baking, Matt goes to Anne's house to get her opinion about the bread. She doesn't think it's very special. She thinks that he needs to do something more to win her over. He goes back to the bakery to do a great intentional meal for Nicole. He ends up waiting all night for her and she doesn't show up. Matt goes to see Anne by the dock. She guesses that his plan didn't go well and tries to make him feel better by saying Nicole must have slept in. He mentions that the bread didn't taste good. She thinks that he is doing it for the wrong reasons. He needs to put his best into creating it. Anne chastises him when he says that it is the best of himself. She tells him that he was the one who pushed her to go to art school in Paris. He saw more in her than she ever saw in herself. She believes the same way about him. Matt doesn't believe he can do something passionate like Annie with her art. He doesn't have anything interesting. All he does is bake. She urges him to do more for himself. She narrates a story that in Paris, there was a baker that people lined up to get food from. He commends her that she is a shorter, cuter version of his father. Nicole practices and Philip notices a mistake and stops the routine. He doesn't think she has a good emotional depth to portray what he wants for the dance. He is not convinced that she is doing her best. He calls it off for the day and Nicole is upset. Matt is prepped on baking well for Nicole. She comes to see him. While Annie drives, she sees that Nicole and Matt are in the shop. She begins to get jealous. In the bakery, Matt tries to set up the place for her like he did the last time. She commends him for doing well. Nicole tastes his bread and loves it. He is shocked because he doesn't believe that he had ever made something great. He believes that he was inspired. In the restaurant, Annie cannot concentrate as she knows Matt is with Nicole. Because of the closeness with Novel, Matt has improved his baking skills. Matt narrates the date enthusiastically to Annie, who may be jealous. She is not sure she likes that he is spending time with her. Matt visits Walter to get his opinion about the bread. Walter is still looking for ways to attract publicity and wants him to play a part in a play, but Matt refuses. When he gets feedback from Walter that the bread is great, he decides to take Nicole out to the dock at night. Philip visits Anne and asks if she would love to go out with him. He tells her that before she rejects him, she should know that he is a world-renowned choreographer, and rejection could make him less inspired. He makes her laugh and she decides to join him. Philip and Anne tease each other on a date. She narrates her life and the fact that she paints. He wonders why she hides it in her house. He tells her that it is never too late to do more things. He asks her to dance with him. Even though she can't dance, she agrees. Matt and Nicole arrive at the place and he sees her dancing. Anne introduces Philip and Matt introduces Nicole. She decides to leave because she has a lot to do. Philip reminds Nicole of early rehearsal the next day. Nicole can wow Philip at the rehearsal because she is now using her emotion. Still not giving up, Walter rushes to the Seattle News to try to get publicity for the town for their anniversary. He hopes to get a feature, but instead, they ignore him. Matt visits Anne in the restaurant and asks her about the date with Philip. She says that she had a great time with him. Matt warns her to be careful because he looks like he is not in a meaningful relationship like she wants. She promises that she can take care of herself and can also do well without his input. Annie tells Mary that Matt was talking about her relationship. She counters that she doesn't need Matt to tell her about the flirting. Mary still believed that they had feelings for each other. Matt may be jealous of Philip and she is jealous of Nicole. Matt is thrilled when they do a feature of his pastries on television. He is thrilled about it and they celebrate with him. He hugs Annie and appreciates her for her help. They unknowingly stare into each other's eyes afterward, which hints that they may have feelings for each other. Duval Bakeries is now famous and many people want to take his bread. Anne spends more time with Philip and talks about how she would love to go to Paris because she loves it there. He invites her to the dance show happening. Seeing Matt come in with Nicole, she asks Philip if he wants to take her out. He agrees to it. She leaves the table and Matt calls her aside to ask for the menu. She tells him that the kitchen is closed because she would need to clean up and get ready for her date. She wants to make him jealous. Matt and Nicole are in the park and more people appreciate him about the bakery. She asks him if he wants to take her out sightseeing. He doesn't do well with boats and tells her that he can't swim. He recalls a childhood memory of how he almost drowned but Annie saved him. Nicole sees that there is a spark between them. She wonders why they never dated. He believes that they would never. He notices that she has been acting weird and Anne urges him to talk more about her feelings. He tries to kiss her but unknowingly pours water on her. After the date, Philip drops Annie at home and asks to see her painting. She is scared that he may not like it. He understands that she is not ready. Jean Claire comes across Mrs. D's dog and invites him in. Matt thinks his father may like Mrs. D when he comments that she is pretty without the scowl on her face. Anne is told that a man named Thompson wants to buy the restaurant. She teases that she would never sell it, but she thinks about it nonetheless. Matt finds out that Get Up America wants to do media coverage for the bakery. He decides to see Annie and asks why they are fighting. He notices that she is different. He confronts her that something is finally happening for him, but she is not interested in him. He wants her to be happy for him. She apologizes because she is going through some things. They decide to make up. He tells her that he may be in love with Nicole, which makes Annie think hard. Matt tells her that Nicole is like her, smart, talented, and complicated. She advises him to ask her more about her feelings if he wants to pursue something. Anne finally realizes that she is in love with Matt and talks more about it with Mary. She worries that Matt may want to leave with Nicole after the show. Angie tells her not to worry and that things are okay between them. Matt's father decides to return the dog to Mrs. D. She asks him out for coffee. Anne doesn't feel like painting out on the dock and goes through her pictures of Matt and her. The performance is about to start. Annie watches how Matt watches Nicole with admiration. The performance ends and they applaud each other. Mrs. D sees Jean Claire and is pleased to see him. He teases that he is blushing because he is in the presence of a beautiful woman. Annie congratulates Nicole on her dance and finds out that Nicole is moving to the place. She is bummed about it. She tries to leave afterward, but Philip stops her. He understands that she loves someone else. He kisses her on the cheek and bids her goodnight. Matt talks to Nicole privately and tells her that he loved the dance. She tells him that she loves the memories and would miss him so much. She would be going on a 6-month tour and there would be no time for them to chase what they have. He stops her and understands that it's a goodbye speech. He hopes that she succeeds in her career. He decides to leave and she is sad about it. Annie returns home and decides to make a call to William Thompson about selling the restaurant. Mrs. D decides to leave and she bids Jean Claire goodbye. Matt goes to see Anne in her house, but she doesn't want to answer the door. He returns to the bakery and has lost his inspiration with creating bread. Not many customers want the bread and they are left out. Walter is scared that Matt won't create magic and there won't be coverage for the town because of it. Walter decides to see Matt talk about it in the house, but Matt promises he will be fine. Anne has finally closed the sale on her restaurant. She feels bad that she has to let go of her parents' franchise. Mary notices a few papers that she is letting go of the restaurant. She tells her that she is going to have a baby and she, on the other hand, doesn't have anyone. Mary tells him to tell him how she feels. She doesn't need to be miserable. She hopes to move quickly with life. At the town hall meeting, the people ask about the bread. Walter says that Matt had his heart broken, and so, lost his inspiration. He says that Get Up America would be coming soon and they need the bread to be good. The townspeople suggest that they would need to make him fall in love. The officer suggests that Annie would be great. She tells him that she would love to help but doesn't know how to, especially now that she has sold her restaurant. She leaves, upset. They finally suggest the internet to help him fall in love. Matt visits Annie and confronts her about not communicating with him and also not saying anything. He starts to talk but she leaves to answer a phone call. Walter makes him see Heather, his supposed cousin, but Matt is not very interested. He asks him for a tour but refuses. The other men try to get him more ladies but it doesn't work out, so he leaves. Anne decides to take one last walk around town. She stops by the bakery and sees Matt. She is afraid of goodbyes. He doesn't know why she wants to leave. She wants to do something great. She wants to tell him about her feelings but can't. She is finally taking the advice to paint more. She thinks he won't notice that she is gone. He would miss her talks and movie nights. She knows that they would talk more over FaceTime. He is scared that she would leave and abandon him. She confronts him for not picking himself up after everything happened. She tells him that she saved him once and would be fine without him no matter what. She calls him infuriating and he shouts that he would be fine without her. He tries to bake after the fight while she packs her bags. The next day is the anniversary. Walter figures out that the bread is very good after a customer commends the recipe. Matt is sleeping when the others show up in his bedroom. They want to know why the bread is good. He says that the bread is only good when he is in love. He realizes that he is in love with Annie. At the ship, Annie is saying goodbye to Mary and he rushes over to see her. The whole town is behind him as he tries to get her back. He gets to the dock and sees that the ship has sailed. He calls out the name that he loves her. He was going to enter the sea to save her. It turns out that she forgot her passport. He confesses that he loves her and he was too much of a fool to notice it. She tastes the bread and says that it is great, and they share a kiss.